Hi everybody, this is actually my first time doing this, but not really because I recorded a whole thing and my audio was not on, so that's always fun. But as you all know, we're kind of under this, if you're watching this in the future, this was actually taken during a time where we're all social distancing because of the virus that's going through, running rampant throughout the country, throughout the world. And as a creative, I was getting a little stir crazy. I had gigs coming up. I'm a photographer, I'm a freelance photographer, and they all got canceled because, we understand that we should be social distancing. So it's not wise or healthy to really expose myself to my clients. My clients expose themselves to me. And so, I was getting a little depressed. So I asked my husband if he would be my model, and he agreed. So we actually had some fun. If you watch the previous video, you'll see that we were actually just shooting in the backyard and having some fun. And yeah, so I kind of wanted to take you guys on my journey to editing my photos. I'm just wanting to provide some tips. I'm not going to do like a full out edit of like how I usually edit photos because I use a lot of custom presets that I've created for myself. But I wanted to show you all how I edit in general. So so that was fun, being out in the back and being able to, just shoot around and have some fun without the pressure of like one, getting paid, and then also just be able to experiment with some things. So that's what we're doing today. It is vitally important that you all shoot in RAW, and I'll tell you why. So my picture, as you can see, is underexposed, and some people might be like, oh, it's too dark. And yeah, it is too dark. Like, I wouldn't give this to a client. I wouldn't let this be my finished product unless that's how you are. Then I totally understand that, if that's your editing style, but it's not mine. So the reason why I underexpose is because when we shot this, it was actually like high noon. So if you could see his shadows, you see that the sun is like bearing right on top of him, like right on top of him. And I wanted to get some pictures of him under the hat, which created a shadow, which is great. But it's, for some people it can be a nightmare. It can be scary because like, oh God, it's underexposed. How do I save this photo, right? So the reason why you shoot in RAW is because when you edit your photo, you want to be able to have all the details in there. If you shot in JPEG, you would lose all of this. If you were to edit it, you would lose the background, you would lose all this stuff, and it also auto corrects with like color and lighting and all this other stuff. So with RAW, it really gives you like a blank, slate to really do what you want to the photos. So yeah. Also, you want to underexpose because you see this guy back here. If I expose for my subject, meaning if I were to try to get him in like the perfect lighting by changing the settings on my camera, then I would lose the details in here because my subject is in the shadows and in the background is a lot brighter than my subject. So you would get like something like this. If this was my settings for shooting, if I overexpose my photo. So my subject would be lit, but then I would lose all the detail in the back. I would lose the trees, I would lose the sky, I would lose some of the plants in the background, I would lose some of the details. So what you want to do is underexpose, and you want to expose for outside for your background, not necessarily your subject. And again, this rule can change. Like, there are rules that are made, but there are rules that can also change, depending on what kind of look you're going for. But I knew that I didn't want to lose the details of the background, nor did I want to lose the details of my subject. So I underexposed. So the first thing I do with a photo like this is I lower the contrast, which seems counterproductive because if you up the contrast, it just creates a greater, again, contrast from the brights to the darks. So with contrast, I just take it out. And so it looks pretty bad right now. I usually do this to give like a film kind of look to my photos, depending on like, again, what my desired outcome is. But you'll be able to see that you can get the details back in the photo later on. Okay, so this kind of makes it even. So the subject is kind of evenly lit to the background and all this other stuff. It gives us more chance to really save the data from this photo. So then what I do is I go to dehaze. Dehaze has a kind of interesting effect. It looks like it's turning brown. And again, this whole thing is an experiment. There's no perfect solution for photographers, honestly. It's really up to what you want to do. If you want to up the exposure, and have it how I showed you in the beginning, perfect. But again, every photographer has their own taste, has their own style of editing and shooting. So this is just what I do. So again, I up the dehaze, and again, that creates a little bit more contrast. And then I also up the clarity so that the details of my subject, like the bridge of his nose, like the curves and things like that, are still caught in the photo. Okay. Then I lower the blacks to add that black back to the shadows, but also like his hat, certain details on his shirt, those kinds of things. And then I lower the highlights just a little bit. And again, if you up the highlights, you'll just lose the detail. So I lower the highlights just a little bit, okay? From there, I also lower the saturation to like maybe 10 because I'm gonna edit this in Photoshop as well. And so I don't want the colors that I add to the photo in Photoshop to overwhelm the photo. Being that it seemed like the dehaze action added a little bit more brown, I'm gonna add a little bit more blue to it, just a smidge. Yeah, okay. So then from there, I'm gonna go to RGB. And again, these are for highlights up here. This is midtones and these are the shadows, okay? So what I wanna do is add some light throughout the photo. I wanna bring in more light. Boom, already makes a big difference, right? Look at this, like from here to being kind of muddied and like, to now I can see his details. I can see more light. I don't lose all the details. It looks nice, I like it. And again, of course, it's looking, of course, a little less saturated because I brought down the saturation, okay? So greens, let's go to greens. So we have a lot of greens here in this photo. The trees, it's lush, ivy and stuff like that in the background that you can't really see in detail, but it's spring. So things are starting to bloom, the greens are coming out, and some people do different things with their greens. Some people up the greens, some people bring them down. Some people, and you can also, there are also yellows in here, so you can also up the yellows. You can also bring them down, but again, that creates kind of like a, that's interesting. I like that actually, but I'll get back to that in a second. But yeah, for yellows and the hues, you can actually turn it from like how it is now, so you can make it more red, more orange, or you can make it more green and blue, right? And the same thing can go for the greens. You can bring it down to bring more orange to more blue, more green. For what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down my greens. And I like that. I like it, but I'm gonna, for the sake of this video, I'm gonna up the yellows a little bit. So greens, I'm gonna bring down just because sometimes they can be overwhelming. Like it's just too much, you know? I don't want all that. So I'm up the yellows and down the greens, okay? Then under hue, let's see, let's experiment. Again, it's all in what you want. I don't really want it super green like that, so I'm gonna, because it almost looks like unrealistic, like too green, like the fake green at the Michaels, right? We know that yellow, like plants have different kind of colors in them. It's not just green. So I'm gonna add some orange in there. The green itself, yeah, I'm gonna do this, okay? All right, and so in luminance, it really just had, what I've come to understand it is like how bright and dark you want your photos to be, how much black or white you want in these colors. So either you want it really dark or you want really light, like literally like white. I'm gonna add a little bit more brightness for green. I'm gonna add a little brightness as well. Yeah, okay. So we're just gonna leave everything down here alone. I usually, you know, mess with this stuff sometimes, not often, mostly with the collaboration. So calibration, what was I want? Collaboration, calibration. But I'm just gonna leave it alone for the sake of this. And again, even with your curves, right? Your reds, if I bring it down, I add more green to it. If I bring it up, I add more red to it. And sometimes I like to play with this, just add some greens and reds in the highlights, and I'll probably just erase this later, but we're just having fun. With greens, you bring it down, it adds more kind of reds, magentas, right? Yeah, let's see. I might do like an S for this, and I might bring some greens. Yeah, that's cool. And then blues, if I bring it down, add more yellow. So we'll do a little bit, that makes it a little bit warmer. And then add some blues in there. Do I want blues in the shadows? I mean, in the highlights, I mean shadows. Let's see. And reds. And this is gonna look completely different than the photo I had from before, but you know, who cares? Let's have some fun, you know? We're all just trying to have some fun, okay? And so let me show you the difference. I'm gonna turn this on and off. One is darker, but also just, you know, the red though, I'm gonna take off from the shadows. I'm actually delete this and delete this. That's almost too red. All right. I feel like I just messed up everything. So I'm just gonna go back. I'm just gonna go back, flatten curve, and really just, oh yeah, that's why. Delete control point. All right. Cool. Okay, so yeah, so for this one, I just add a little bit more light. And again, I was just showing you some things you can play around with. I'm gonna also add just a little bit more light. Yay. Okay. So this is what we had before. And this is what we have now. And again, this is why it's super imperative to shoot in RAW so that you can save your photos when your photos look like this. Okay. All right. So now I'm gonna edit this in Photoshop. So I right clicked and click edit in Photoshop 2020. All right, now we are in Photoshop. And so Photoshop, you can do a lot of things in here, but for the sake of this edit, I'm just gonna keep it real simple and keep it straight colors, okay? We're just gonna talk straight colors. So here, what I forgot to do in Lightroom is usually I touch up my photos. So like you see like this speck of dust here and there, little things, you know, I usually do in Lightroom, but I'll just do it for Photoshop because you can do it and sometimes better here. So what you first wanna do is, because I'm doing a little bit more detailed editing, I'm going to actually make a copy of my background, because if I'm editing on this copy, if I mess up on this one, I can still go back to this one and start all over. Okay. So what I'm going to do is actually just use the quick spot healing brush tool. Again, just real quick, real easy, like not that deep or complicated. And so what this tool actually does is you can go over, if I can get in the right place, you can go over a spot, like you see these little specks. I'm actually gonna touch this up, boom, just go right over it, align, and it gets rid of it. And it uses whatever is around it to fill in for what might be wrong. So if I'm doing it here, it's using the area around it to fill in what it should be, which is pretty cool. So here you got a couple of flakes. All right, and yeah, I mean, again, you can go crazy with this. I try to do minimal editing on my photos because I believe that God made us all beautiful. I know how to do super edited photos, but you know, is it really worth it for me? Not really. I'm not really doing spreads in magazines and stuff like that. So yeah, no thanks. And it's just more work. Okay, so you see the before, you see the after. Before, after. Perfect. Okay, so now it's the fun stuff. So here is kind of like the basic photo. This is good, you know what I'm saying? Nothing's necessarily wrong with this photo, but I kind of want to add more oomph to it. So what I'm actually going to do is add more details into the photo, and you can do this like one of two ways, and I'll show you both. So one way is like the black and white. So this is nice, right? Isn't that nice? And if I wanted to, I can do some curves and make it pop. But for the sake of this, I'm showing you how to get it to where soft light. So this is really muddied, it's really ugly, but you want to bring down the opacity so that it's not that intense. So I just use this to add like just a little bit, right? Because if I use too much, then I lose the light in my photo. I lose the light. So that's one way you can do it. I'm not going to do it that way. But what I will do is use gradient maps. Ooh. Gradient maps, and I believe it's this one. If not, I'll change it. But then I do luminosity, first of all. It didn't even take, so there's that. Yeah. All right. So luminosity. So what this means is in the shadows, this is what it's going to look like. It's going to apply more blacks, right? And then lights is going to apply more whites. So you can already see it's adding more contrast to the photo. But what I want to do is bring down the opacity again, because I don't want to lose all my light. I just wanted just a little bit of contrast. See the difference? See it? It's like just enough. So you can add however much or as little as you want to. It's really up to you. Okay? So yeah, so I've added some contrast to my photo. I'm going to bring it down to like maybe 20. Okay, and now I want to add some color. So again, I'm going to go to gradient maps. And again, I've created actions here, but just to show you, I'm going to show you here. And so I'm going to choose this one, and there are a bunch of different colors you can choose from to do whatever you want with. And again, the same rules apply. Shadows are purples, midtones are like blue and greens, and then the high points are going to be more orange. Okay? So again, this is kind of cool looking. You know, you can do whatever you want with this. You can make it more fun or whatever. But for the sake of this edit, we're going to do luminosity. So that looks crazy, right? It looks inverted and crazy. So you're going to bring down the opacity. I'm going to do maybe like 24 to test out. And again, you can always test and experiment to see what works for you. So I'll do levels. I went here, press levels, and then you're going to bring in. And what this basically does is it brings more depth to the photo. I mean, that's the kind of language I use, and brings more like brightness to the photo as well. Okay, and so it's still dark, right? So what do you do now? So now I do curves. And again, curves are fun because they're fun to experiment with, and you can add more light into them, into your photo and stuff like that. And I just think it looks nice. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is press Control, click all of these, select all of these, and then right click, and I'm going to click Group from Layers. I'm going to call this layer Colors, because this is how I added color into my photo. This is the before, this is the after. You know, it's brighter, it's richer. And again, this is a quick edit. There are some things I would change, but you know, so you get the basics. So then what I would do on top of that is I would press Control minus, which would make the photo smaller so that I have more room to work with. Then I would add another layer and then go to here to the gradient tool. And for the sake of this edit, we're going to do this. Okay, and so then you're going to choose, make sure the one with the dot in the middle is selected. The second one, the radial gradient. Okay, come on with these names. The radial gradient, okay? So what you're going to do is press Shift, click, and bring down. Boom. Look at that, right? So you've created like a vignette, right? But you don't want it to be so obvious. So you're going to do soft light so that it's less obvious that that's what you're doing. And you're also going to bring the opacity down so that it looks natural. But you want to do it to make sure that your subject is the focus of this photo, that this is the focus of this photo. And depending on how far you bring the tool down when you use it determines how drastic the change is versus how like smooth it is. So that's why I made the picture smaller. That's why I minimized it. Okay, so here you have it, and I'll probably under that add more light so there's more contrast. Too much. Okay. Yep. Boom. There you have it. easy edit for a photo that's underexposed. This is why you shoot in RAW. All the details are still intact. You know, it's not over processed and all this other stuff. And again, you can do some cute stuff. Like if the sun is here, now I'm just playing around. If the sun is here, I can, let's see, add some color. Where's my, because it looks like the sun is coming down this way, right, from his back. And so what I would do, maybe just for fun, is add that there, right? But you don't want to keep that there because no. So you would do either soft light, or where's the other one? Soft light, or I'm gonna do soft light or overlay. Yeah, that's the one. It's either soft light or overlay. I choose soft light because it just looks more natural. And then I'm bringing it again down the opacity. So it's not that intense, but it's just still there, like a little tinge of sunshine in the photo. But yeah, anyway, this was my quick edit for today. I hope this was helpful. Again, you should always shoot in RAW. You should always underexpose for your subject and for the background as well, to save all the information so that you can still save it. So let's see, we went from, and I'm gonna group this together and call this light. Okay, so let's turn both of these off. So this is, let's actually go back, right? Let's go back. So you went from this to this to this, okay? Then you went to, oop, picked the wrong program. Then you went to move this to Photoshop. Then you got here. Ooh, look at that. And then you added some light. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Shout out to my husband for being my model. And I hope this was helpful. Let me know. And until next time, y'all, stay safe out there. You can still be creating even though we're, you know, told to stay home and things like that. But yes, please stay safe. And until next time, guys, bye.